Well, hello, and welcome to episode 173 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here, as always, with Michaela. And Michaela, it is the month of June, which is Pride Month worldwide. So we're here to celebrate that, and we're going to be talking about a movie today that I have never seen until just this weekend. But this is one of your emotional heartstring pullers. This is one of your favorite. I don't know if it's one of your favorite films, but it's a movie that you hold in pretty high esteem. So we were talking about what to cover. We wanted to do something for the month, and you brought this one up, and I said, "Let's do it. Sounds good to me. That cast looks amazing. Let's learn all about the mining strike in England, right? That's what that's what you do for Pride Month. And today we're going to talk about that 2014's Pride. You looking forward to getting into this one, Michaela?
I saw this with my one of my oldest friends, Jeff, in 2014. It was showing up at like an independent picture house. It wasn't at the
Mm-hmm.
one that we are the one in Charlotte, but it was a similar one in San Antonio, Texas. I was visiting my family there, and he was like, "Hey, there's this movie that's out. No one's gonna watch it. I don't really have anybody to see it with, but I'd really like to see it." And I was like, "I gotcha." And I went in, and I was floored because I had never heard of it before. I'd never heard of it since. It actually, we're going to talk about all the things, but I was like, this is amazing. This can't be real. And then I look it up and it's totally based on a true story, which is also really cool. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is. I've only watched it twice. I watched it in the theaters then in 2014, and I watched it just last night to prepare for the podcast. So it does tug on all my heartstrings. It is all of my like favorite emotional big buttons. So I appreciate you coming with me on the ride one way or another for this movie. But I think it's really important here at Drink the Movies. We wanted to do something that was proud, and I think that this fits that bill. And the cocktail is pretty cool too.
And the cocktail is pretty cool too, and we are going to go along for the ride, that long ride from London to Wales. So let's do this, Michaela. Let's go ahead. We will take a quick break. We'll grab some ingredients here. Nothing too crazy, but we're gonna do our best to layer these into a cocktail glass to make it look worthy of this movie. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to whip up this week's drink.
So Brian, for Pride Month, I thought it would be really cool if we could make a cocktail that sort of looked like the pride flag.
Hmm.
And I went and looked at a bunch of different recipes, and they all looked really hard and complicated until
Did
I
it?
found this one that has a bunch of cocktails in it. It is from Chilled Magazine, Out and Proud, and this looked really good. And it actually also looked really easy in the sense that it didn't require a ton of stuff that we didn't maybe already have in our liquor cabinets, which is important here at Drink the Movies because we buy some real weird esoteric stuff sometimes to make these
Hmm.
cocktails. And it was really nice that this didn't need to be like steeped in tea or we didn't need a special milk dairy product or, a bee sting flower that we needed to create a bubble mass in. So this is simple enough. And it actually layered pretty well.
It layered pretty well. It layered pretty well. Yeah, I like this article here from Chilled Magazine. It's basically just five Pride Month themed cocktails, and yeah, we're doing the first one here. It is called the Out and Proud, and I like this particular article was written by Sophia DeVito, and Sophia knew that you weren't going to be able to get this right. Right? They got theirs for the picture, but like the final like step in it is to just stir all this stuff together because they're like, no way you're going to be able to get all these layers in. But we did our best. We did our best. So what you're going to do, Michaela? Is you're going to get a tall glass, like a Collins glass. Probably you could probably use like a just like a regular like beer glass. You could probably build it in that, something like that. Just something tall because you want to get your layers in here. You're going to fill that up with ice, and you're going to start layering it in here. And your first layer is going to be an ounce of pineapple juice. Let's go ahead and put that in. And then what you're probably going to want to do from here on out for your liquor ingredients is to grab a spoon, pour it over the back, and that's going to help it kind of float on top here. So on top of the pineapple juice, we're going to go with a half ounce of Aperol, right? So we've got our yellow, we've got our red, and then on top of that, do the same treatment there with some soda water. It didn't give an exact amount. I just kind of did enough to make it for sure separate the layers here a little bit between the Aperol and the next layer, so some soda water. Then you're going to go with 1.5 ounces of Empress gin. Empress is the big one now. You can see it everywhere. It's basically like given every bar in the world an excuse to just go back and redo all of their gin drinks and make them purple instead of clear. So you can get that. I used one, local one here from Conniption. It's called Kinship, I believe is the name of it. Or there's a couple other ones now. So 1.5 ounces of that, and that's going to give you like blue, purple layer there. And then you're going to top that off with some elderflower syrup, which you can buy at like fancy grocery stores, which is where we got ours. You could probably make it if you had access to elderflowers. But go ahead and do that and top that off, and it gives you kind of your last little crisp layer there. And then you're going to step back, you're going to look at it, and you're going to say, that looks pretty good. It does not look as good as the one in the picture, but looks pretty good, I thought. At least mine did, Michaela. But I gave you a tip. I did an ounce of pineapple juice, just straight up pineapple juice, and it's a little bit thin. So I told you, you might want to use like some like pineapple orange juice, something with a little bit more viscosity to it, maybe help with the layers. Did it help? I don't know.
It did. So here's what I did. I did orange juice, and then I also found like a mango smoothie, and I put that at the bottom because that
Okay.
sunk right down. Another tip for these layered drinks, if you're not in a hurry, and let's be honest, I was not in a hurry. I'm not a bartender, right? I was making it to make it look pretty. I put a couple of cubes of ice in, and then I would do the layer. Then I'd put a couple more cubes of ice in and do the layer, and a couple cubes of ice in, so that you wouldn't get the striations in the glass, because I wanted it to really look like the flag as much as possible.
Okay.
So I did a couple of different things. I tried it just the way it came, and it looked good. Yours looked better, but it still looked a little wonky in the middle. I tried it with that mango puree at the bottom, and that really did what you were hoping the pineapple would, which is really separate nicely. And so you had this really nice orange, and then a defined red for the Aperol, and then kind of a lighter color. And then you had the purple with the Empress gin. Now, what I think our elderflower syrup was not this dark blue, which I think they were thinking that if you got an elderflower syrup, it would be darker. I don't know why. But it changed the color a little bit to the top. So one of the things that I tried was adding some of that pea flower berry that we had on hand to the elderflower syrup and make it really dark. And then when I poured it, it made it like a beautiful dark blue. So you really had that violet, like blue, violet, indigo violet kind of look at the top. And that made it prettier. I don't know if that really affected the flavor at all, but they're correct in you're gonna look at this and you're gonna think it's real pretty. You're gonna take a sip and be like, whoa, okay, all I'm getting is Aperol, or all I'm getting is gin, or all I'm getting is this pineapple mango thing, depending on what you did. So yeah, mix it all up in the end, and it turns this really kind of interesting orangey pinkish color. I'd at least mind it. But it's way more palatable when you mix it.
Yeah, you mix it up, you sip it, and you enjoy it. It's pretty good. I didn't love it flavor wise. I thought that it was pretty good. I think that instead of using the pineapple, if it would have used like an orange pineapple, I think that would have helped a little bit. There was a little bit too much of a contrast between just the straight pineapple juice and the Aperol. I thought it was a little bit too astringent, maybe, and then the gin coming in, it was a little bit too medicinal tasting. I thought maybe kind of in a way between the gin and then that Aperol bite. So having a little bit more of a structured juice might have helped with that, I thought. But I thought that it was pretty good. And obviously this was picked solely on aesthetic and the ingredients here that we were able to get some things that we definitely love, and I think it was worthy of trying it out to practice our layering game, and B to recreate that flag there to the best of our ability with these ingredients. But I thought it was pretty good. I might tweak it a little bit and go back to it because now I have a bunch of pineapple juice on hand. So what am I going to do with that and a bottle of $12 elderflower syrup? Make more of these, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I might have made like 7 or 8 of them because I was like, wait,
wow,
what if instead of Aperol we use grenadine, because it was a little tart. I used a little bit too much Aperol, I think, when I made it the first time. It calls for half an ounce, and I think I did like 3/4 of an ounce because it didn't have enough red, and I wanted it to be like really layered correctly or whatever, or evenly. So I tried it with Grenadine, I tried it with, but the grenadine sunk all the way to the bottom, which was fine because actually the rainbow flag is Roy G. Biv, right? So it should be red and then orange and then yellow. So then I tried to do that. I was like, what if I use the pineapple juice and then like use that for use the club soda to make it like a light yellow. I mean, I played with this and played with this and played with this. I mean, it's a really fun drink. And, Pride Month Pride is not just about a month. It should be something you do all year long. So I'm going to be playing with this for a while.
And there you go. Absolutely. So go ahead and grab those ingredients, try one of those, go to the website, take a picture or take a look at pictures of ours, and then go to Chilled Magazine and see the picture of the professional one that they made there. So yeah. So now that we've got those mixed up, Michaela, let's go ahead. We'll grab some more elderflower syrup, some more Empress gin. We'll mix up another one of these, and we'll be right back to chat about this week's film, Pride.
Gays and lesbians have been absolutely magnificent. There's no other word for it.
You must have found it a bit weird, a load of gays and lesbians descending on you like that.
Why on earth would we have found that weird?
Spoiler warning for Pride. If you've not yet seen this 2014 film, don't feel bad, because not a lot of people have, I don't think. But it's really worth your time. And we're going to talk about all the things. So if you've not yet seen it, I strongly suggest that you press pause, you go make yourself or take a shot at making yourself an Out and Proud cocktail, because it's really good and it's a lot of fun to make. And then you can go watch the film, come back, and we can chat about all the things Pride.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So this was released in 2014, and it is available to watch. I think it's on Peacock as well as Paramount Plus. I think it's available both of those places if you want to check it out there. It was directed by Matthew Warchus, and it stars Ben Schnetzer as Mark Ashton, the founder and de facto leader of the LGSM organization we'll talk about, and Patty Considine as David Donovan, the de facto leader of the Men's Union and Strike Committee there for the coal miners. This one also features Bill Nighy, Imelda Staunton, and Dominic West, because I think in 2014 they're like, who are like the best British actors that we could pull in to be on this thing? Here we go. And then there's a lot of other people in this. We'll talk about them as we kind of go through the different groups of people and how they interacted. So Michaela, as you mentioned, this was not a movie that I was familiar with. I don't think that honestly I'd ever even heard of the movie until you brought it up to put on the list. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get through the story. So let's just get right into it, because this movie starts at an event that's going on a lot this month, all around the world right now. And I think it's the 1984 Pride Parade in London.
That's right. We focus in on Joe Bromley Cooper, who is not a real person. He's a fictional character, but he lives at home. He lives at home in Bromley, which is not it's in the outskirts of London. And he goes to his very first Pride Parade. He sneaks out. His family doesn't know that he's gay. I mean, this is the early 80s. And he goes to kind of check out what happens at the Pride Parade. And there's a lot of things that happen at the Pride Parade. If you've never been, then there's a lot of people holding signs. There's a lot of banners. And he kind of literally runs into somebody who's holding a banner and saying, "Hey, I need you to hold this." And he's like, yeah, I wasn't really hoping to stand out this much. And he's like, "Yeah, dude, you're at a Pride Parade and you're in the parade. So you're going to stand out. Everyone's going to know your name." And they're aligned on the side of the road. There are people watching. Some are, really watching in support. Most are not. Most are watching in disgust. In fact, this character, he sees this woman and her child, and they're like, "Oh, this is disgusting." And he's like, "Yeah, totally." And then he realizes that he's talking about himself, and maybe that shouldn't be the case. But there's a lot of police. It's really an interesting kind of thrust that you as the audience member are put into as to what a Pride Parade is and what it would be like as a person who's not out, living with their family in the time when, we were seeing kind of the gay pride sexual revolution happening. But at the same time, that was not being, it was not being accepted and supported anything like what it is maybe today.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like Joe. Yeah, like you said, he just gets thrust in. He put it like made to carry the banner. He runs into Mike Jackson, who's played by Joseph Gilgan, there carrying the banner. And we learn later in the film, when it comes full circle, that apparently this banner was right up front, which is probably not where Joe imagined himself to be at this event. Just coming out into the world right there. So we have the parade, which is great, and then they're back having kind of their celebratory, kind of after party, and it seems to me like the Pride Parade is basically broken down into some different kind of like chapters, I guess, of different groups, right, different organizations and things. And this one in particular happens to be based out of this bookshop here in London. So we're back, we're doing a little bit of celebrating, and we're introduced to kind of the rest of the crew here. So Ben Schnetzer, as I mentioned, is playing Mark Ashton, who's kind of the leader of these people. We have Mark's friend Mike, who's carrying the banner there. We're introduced to Stephanie, Steph Chambers, played by Faye Marseille. There, she's the lesbian, going to be the L in the LGSM, and then we've got I don't know. They're kind of portrayed at the beginning of the film as like this curmudgeonly couple, like eccentric couple that lives kind of upstairs from the bookshop. We've got Dominic West playing Jonathan Blake, and Andrew Scott as his partner, Gethin Roberts. But everyone's kind of here at this bookshop celebrating a little bit, but kind of in the backdrop of the Pride Parade, we've also got going on in the UK at this time. We've got the coal miners strike, right? It's like government versus the people in the strike, how long they can drag this out. And Mark Ashton makes the astute observation that the government is treating these striking miners very similar to the way that he's been treated his whole life, and maybe something can be done.
Maybe something can be done about it. Yeah. He thought it's kind of brilliant the way this is filmed, in the sense that you see Mark Ashton, he's getting ready for the morning, and he sees this newsreel about, hey, how the strikers are on day 42 of the strike. It's a really big deal. And for those of you that don't know, this was a really big point, or turning point, I think, in like Great Britain historical times. We had Margaret Thatcher, who was the prime minister. They were going on strike. They had shut down a lot of the mines, and it was really wreaking havoc in these really small, like, mining towns. People were literally starving. And we learn more about this from a historical perspective watching this film. But Mark is looking at that, and he's looking at the footage of all of the police beaten, like literally with their sticks, like just beating the people who are working the picket line, or just because they don't like the look of them. They don't like that they're there, and they're not doing anything wrong. They're not hurting anybody. And he's like, you know what? We should support each other. And of course, he brings this up at the bookstore, which is called Gay is the Word. I just love that, by the way. And he says, hey, we should all come together and we should support the miners. And people are like, first of all, the miners probably don't support us. I mean, why would we do that? And secondly, like, who's going to take our money? Like, how much, how much money are we actually going to be able to raise? So there's a lot of naysayers when he starts like this whole movement with a handful of people, but he does get 5 or 6 to say, yeah, okay, we'll collect these, we'll go out and collect some coins with some buckets, and then just say, hey, support the miners. Hey, support the miners. And that's how it begins. It's really small. And Bromley, who's, never been around people that were like him, or at least that's what it looks like. He just kind of fits right in with these fast friends in an effort to create some change for good, right?
That's right. Yeah. And he has a brand new camera that he got for his birthday, I think, in like one of the opening scenes there. So he's got this fancy new camera. So he's going to play documentarian here for the efforts of the LGSM, right? It's the Lesbian and Gay Support the Miners is the name of their organizations. Pretty catchy title. And that's going to catch wind of some people, right? Because they go out, they start collecting this money. At least I wasn't familiar with. Here you got Mark is like grabbing all these buckets to go to, when he's off for the parade and things. And they're doing like these bucket drives, right? Just trying to get some spare change from people to send back to the miners. And then when they, decide to start this organization, they start calling around, right? We need to work with someone, right? We can't just collect this money? Who do we give it to? How does it best get used? What do they really need it for? So they start calling around, right? They call all over the place, and they eventually come across this mining union in Wales, and they decide to take the phone call. Gwen, who's my favorite character in the whole movie for sure. There's a couple of really good characters here named Mena Tressler, plays her there. Takes the phone call and passes that on to kind of the head of this men's union. Right, his name is David Donovan, Paddy Considine. So he's going to go down to London because, of course, he thinks that the LGSM certainly stands for something London, something, some big fancy organization. But he turns up and it's the LGSM members at this gay bookshop in London. So it's a bit of an eye-opening experience for him. But kudos to Di Donovan because he's going to be thankful, be gracious, and demand that he says thank you to this community that showed support to them when, they were, in a time of true need.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how this scene goes because Paddy Considine is amazing. He's been in a bunch of stuff that I love. He's really understated. He's got this beautiful way of showing surprise. But the character Di,
he's very like shy.
Yeah. He's like, I've had to learn to be like a public speaker, and I'm really not good at this. And they're like, hey, why don't we buy you a beer? Why don't we show you a really good time? So what do? They take him to a really lovely gay bar, and everybody leaves him alone. Like they don't, all the things that, you're thinking may happen and he's probably thinking might happen to him don't happen. People are kind, people are gracious. And he gets up, and at first people are like, oh my gosh, what is this? But he says, thank you so much. We really couldn't do this without you. And it really starts to kind of build this relationship between this community of miners who are, thought of as manly men who go down to the caves and like do manly things, and the lesbian and gay community, which, they would be very uncomfortable perhaps around each other, right? And not supportive of each other in the past. And so it's really kind of neat. Di goes home to his family, and he goes home to the mining community, and he says, look, they've raised so much money. People have been raising money left, right, and center, but they've raised more than any other group. We're going to take their money, and we also don't really have a choice. Things are really bad. And this was based on truth, right? There were people that literally felt like they had to sell all of their belongings. They couldn't pay their bills. They had no electricity. This went on for quite some time. And the way, in case you don't know, the way the strikes work is you couldn't leave. You couldn't go and actually, if you were on strike, you weren't allowed to work. It would ruin your career as a miner. And this wasn't a time where you could just go and say, well, I'll just go be a plumber then. That's not how it works, or how it worked then anyway. So in these little communities, people were like literally like needing this money, and they were raising stuff and sending it on every week. And so Di's like, look, the LGSM needs to come, and we have this kind of thank you kind of spaghetti dinner, it looked like, kind of thing that they say, hey, all of the miners are there to thank everybody, and they've donated the most money, that we should put them on the list of people to invite. And I love this scene because we're introduced to some of the women in the mining community, right? And again, this is a really amazing cast. We see Imelda Staunton, who is amazing. She plays Hefina. And then Jessica Gunning, who everybody might know now from Baby Reindeer. This was, 10 years ago, and she plays the real character of Sean James. She's there like canning goods. She's like, they're new, her and her husband are new to the community, and all these women are talking about should they or shouldn't they invite them, and she steps up and pipes up, and she's like, look, they've sent in the most money, why wouldn't you invite them? What is wrong with you? Who cares if they're gay, man? They're keeping us alive. What are you talking about?
That's right. I love the scene. She's putting up the like the sign that says that they're coming to this dinner, and people kept ripping it down. So she's putting about 20,000 staples in it, and then we see it again where just the center is ripped out, and she has a bit of a standoff with Maureen Barry, who's played by Lisa Palfrey. She's the worst. She's the worst kind of person, as you might imagine here in this story. Doesn't want the outside assistance from this particular group, anyways, for sure. So we're introduced to them. We're also introduced to Cliff Barry, who's played by Bill Nighy. He's another. He's an older gentleman here, kind of highly thought of in the men's union. But they all come together. I love they take their drive from London to wherever this is in Wales, which is I looked it up. It's about like a 4.5-ish hour drive. So not a short trip to get there and back for sure. I really love kind of the views, right? They do a lot of like helicopter views of like this car driving, just through like the desolate area, I guess, between like big city London and small town Wales as they're going back and forth. You get a couple of those instances, but they get there, and all the people from the LGSM kind of spill out of this van, and they kind of look around at each other, and I really like Mark then is like, okay, so which one of us is going to talk? Okay, so me, I guess then, right? So no one is quick to raise their hand. So he has a very similar experience then as Di does, right? When he goes to speak to the people there at the gay bar, and he's quite literally the polar opposite, right? Going to talk to this group of disheveled miners who have been on strike, and he goes up there, and it goes about as well as you could imagine. There's a couple of allies straight away, right? Cliff Barry is from the start seems to be pretty supportive. We get some supports, of course, from Hefna and Sean, and even Gwen there. Very curious Gwen. I love that. She's meeting Steph for the first time. She's like, "Oh, I really want to ask you," and the rest of the ladies are like, "Not now, Gwen. Not now."
Now's not the time.
Which I thought was really brilliant. But you're going to start seeing kind of I guess the thawing of the mindsets of this small town mining community, and the members of the LGSM. I loved Hefna goes out, and I don't know if it was meant to be like her son or like one of her son's friends or something. He's like, what? I bought those guys a pint. What do you want? And she's like, you're going to go talk to him right now, or I'm going to take you out in the street. Because Hefna's amazing. Amanda Staunton is so great in this.
Yeah. No, it's such a cool, and it's such a cool like twist and change, right? As you're actually watching these characters change their mind. Some of them are more amenable to it at the outset, right? And I think that's so what we see today with gay pride in general, right? Where it's like some people are like, hey, I don't mind, whatever, that sounds great. And some are a little on the fence. Some are downright angry about it, right? And so there's a couple of folks who say, I'm not going to be part of this, spaghetti dinner. I'm going to leave. And they're like, fine, get out. And everybody says, well, where are we going to house these people tonight? And then it turns out there's one woman who's polite enough to them, but she's like, look, I'm not hosting them because I'm worried about getting AIDS. And that's kind of the first time we really start to be brought into kind of that discussion and that topic within this movie. For any of our listeners who don't know, AIDS became like a plague on society in general, but completely wreaked havoc on the gay community in the 1980s. It's kind of a very different story now. You can live very, very well and into your old age if you are diagnosed with AIDS now. But back in the day, it was a death sentence and your life was over. And that was really tough. And most people felt that it was only a gay disease, and they didn't want to be educated about it. They weren't educated about it. So there was like, don't touch anybody. Don't breathe the same air, because you're going to get AIDS. And that is not how it spread at all. So that was really interesting because I love that they didn't lead with that in this film. They could have, but we get about a third of the way in before it really becomes a topic of, people's fear was not just around, I don't want to get sick and die. It was really like, I don't feel comfortable around this lifestyle at all,
Yeah, the film doesn't make a super big deal about it. And I think I'm okay with that because it really wanted to focus the story on, the particular like strike that was ongoing between these two groups of people. Obviously, that is a through line, the AIDS epidemic in
For
the
sure.
80s. And it does crop up a couple of times in the story, but it definitely did not feel to me like that was, like a prominent portion of the film. It really tried to, kind of steer this really between these two groups of, people coming together. But as I mentioned, not everyone wants to come together. So Maureen, who's the worst, she doesn't want to be a part of this. She even has some, pretty much, pretty volatile confrontations as far as confrontation in Wales might go. I don't know for sure. With Cliff, who I think was like her like brother-in-law, I believe is kind of what I took to be. They were
Yes.
related through marriage somehow, I think. And he's expressing his disappointment in her and like can't believe her unwillingness to have an open mind about things, to accept this help, to to celebrate in the fact that these groups are coming together, and she is the worst, and she decides to do something about it, of course. So she calls the I don't know, national tabloid or something, and they end up running the story in the paper, which basically presents that the coal miners are being helped by this group of perverts, which gets us to a really great scene then, back at the bookstore when Mark is there talking about it, and everyone's looking a little defeated, everyone's looking a little down in the dumps, and Mark makes the observation that the particular group here of gays and lesbians, right? They have been labeled in all sorts of ways. And how have they always handled that? They have taken that label and owned it and made it theirs, and they're going to do that. So we're going to be throwing the biggest party ever in London. Maybe probably not the biggest party ever in London, but a really great party with a really slamming soundtrack to boot. That is the Pits and Perverts. Those t-shirts looked amazing. I don't know if they sell those somewhere. I'm sure that like what was that, like Super Yaki? I think they make a bunch of like movie t-shirts. Someone should be making that t-shirt for the Bits and Perverts because it's a cool t-shirt. And they're going to go and have a bit of a fundraiser, which gets to the best part of the movie, to be quite honest, is when all of these Welsh miners and like the ladies organization make the trip to London because the Welsh miners probably never been to anywhere like London, so that's pretty fun. And then definitely never spent any time here patrolling the gay parts of London with their
Right.
LGSM allies.
That's true. And again, I love this piece. When it's so neat to see both groups in their non-normal environment, right? So
Mhm.
we see a guy in a gay bar at the beginning of the film, and we see the LGSM in this spaghetti meatball dinner thing right at the Union House, and that turns into a heck of a party, right? Because we got a guy, Dominic West, who I absolutely love. He plays Jonathan Blake. Jonathan Blake is a real person. He's like one of the first people actually diagnosed with AIDS in the UK, believe it or not. And so but he loved to dance, and so he's dancing with all the women, and that was a way of turning the heads of some of the younger miners, because they were like, hey, you can get a bunch of girls if you learn how to dance. And true story.
Like every woman in Wales was out there dancing with them, basically.
That is true. That is true. That's absolutely true. My first love, totally knew how to dance, was totally gay. Okay, I'm just saying. It is absolutely a thing. And so then these big burly miners are like, I want to learn to dance, and it's so great. And then they all get to go and actually dance in the gay club at the Pits and Perverts like function. It's so much fun. And you see people that are gay, you see people that are straight, you're all coming together, everyone's having a good time, and they're raising a ton of money for this cause, which is so cool. Unfortunately, what is also happening back on Welland, I have no idea how to say the name of this town, by the way. They said it like 6 times and I couldn't figure it out, but it is a Welsh town. The rest of the union leaders are there, and that horrible lady is like trying to get them to vote to not take the LGSM's money anymore. And so they're doing these really shifty moves from a political standpoint. They're changing the time of the vote, and half the, board of directors of the union can't be there because they're at this event raising money. And so when they get back, it's really a tough blow to the LGSM, because they basically lost the vote, and they said, look, we've decided that because, we're getting this bad publicity, we're not going to accept any of your money. And it's just heartbreaking. It's a really tough scene.
Yeah, it's tough as we watch them the next morning, kind of after the party, and they're trying to get out of there. Joe is running late because his parents have discovered his stash of pictures from this time, so he's basically been outed to his parents now, and gets put under house arrest by his parents, who are also the worst. They'd probably big fans of Marine, no doubt. So yeah, so they're not late getting there, right? They're still early, but this meeting has already taken place, and they voted to not accept this money, which is pretty nonsensical because they go in and they throw down, just these thousands and thousands of pounds that they had raised at this fundraiser, and that's not even all of it, because they're having their meeting, and Mark's like, "What do these people really need? They really need a bus because they have to get back and forth to the picket line. They have to get out to pick up, food and groceries that are, being donated and stuff like that. So what they really need is a bus. So not only have they raised these thousands and thousands of pounds through this party, they've also garnered enough to get a bus. So when you have Hefina drive by in the bus, and all of these picketers are kind of just standing around, twiddling their thumbs because they don't have anywhere way to get where they're going, and she pulls up in this, and obviously it's marked as the LGSM transportation bus for these miners, and they all kind of begrudgingly get in, but then realize that they're not going to be able to do this alone. They're going to have to accept the supports, and the LGSM is definitely there to have their backs. We didn't talk about the best part about their trip to London. That's because all the ladies, right, Hafina and Sean and Gwen, are there, and they're staying at Gethin and Jonathan's apartment, right? And they're like up, like in the bedroom, like giggling like schoolgirls there. And, Jonathan and Gethin are down like on like an air mattress or something.
Yeah.
He's like, what have we done? What have we done? They just kind of roll over there. Andrew Scott does really, really great scene, really great scene. But they get back, right? And they don't, they decide to not to accept their funding, which is not great. Everyone is going to be a little bit down in the dumps, most notably Mark, who's been kicked here while he's down because he's put forth all this effort. He is really kind of went out on a limb, really dedicated this past year of his life to supporting this cause. He also has his own sort of confrontation with AIDS there on that night out in London, when he runs into an ex-partner of his and finds out that he had it, and thusly Mark probably has it as well. So he's a bit fed up, doesn't know what to do, and ends up kind of storming off. He has a little bit of a fiery confrontation with Joe about living your life. One of the really cool things that Mark does, he has all these little pins that he keeps kind of pinning on people that kind of describe their situation within life and within the film. So that's pretty cool. But when it comes down to it, when that bus turns up, it's going to be, I guess, kind of the lifeline that the miners needed. And about this time, I guess, through the help of the LGSM and presumably other organizations, the strike is kind of coming to an end.
Yeah. It was a year-long kind of thing, and they finally come to an agreement, and everybody can go back to work. And it's really tough because there's this really beautiful scene between Sean and Jonathan Blake, where he says, what's going to happen to you? And Sean's like, I'm a mom. I mean, the strike's going to end, and we're going to go back to work, and I'm going to go back to being a mom. And she's my favorite character. And she's based on a real person. She gets so fired up. There are two individuals, and we kind of gloss over this, but there are two individuals that are in the mining group that get arrested, basically. And it's illegal. They weren't allowed to actually do that. And it was Jonathan Blake who told Sean, hey, here are all the things you need to say in order to get them released immediately, because they actually don't have a right to do that. And how does Jonathan Blake know that? Because he was going down the street in Piccadilly in full drag, and they didn't like the look of him, so they put him in jail. And he was like, oh no, I got this. Court 101, I'm all over it. So Sean is a firecracker. I love her so much. She's kind of looks like kind of this frumpy mom, she's got like this total 80s like haircut, and her husband is kind of a milquetoast. Like he doesn't mind these shenanigans with the gays, as he says, but like, does she have to be front and center with them? Like, he's not as brave as she is by far. And she is just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be this person, and I'm going to help support them because they support us. And I love this conversation with Jonathan and her, because she's like, I'm going to go back to being a mom, and that's what I'm going to do. And he's like, life is so short. You need to grab this fire that you have and go for it. Like, you could go back to school, you could go to college, you could do all these things. You don't have to just be a wife and mom if you don't want to. And then you realize that Dominic West's character, Jonathan Blake, he has AIDS, and he's like, I don't know why I'm not dead. Like, I've had it for a couple of years now. And that's unheard of in this time, because they didn't have medication, and they weren't doing any research to make medication, because they thought all these people would just die. But anyway, so he's like, I don't know why I'm still alive, but I've got to live every day. Like, I'm going to die tomorrow. And Sean, life is short. And I just really love that scene, because it turns out that's exactly what she does. She goes to college and she becomes Sean James. She's Sean James, who becomes this Welsh Labour Party politician in the Swansea East from like 2005 to 2015. And it all started because of this. It's so cool. Anyway.
It is very cool anyway. Yeah, absolutely. So with the strike over, we're going to have to start disbanding the LGSM. There are a couple of other characters who are kind of interesting in this. There are two other lesbians in the story. They are played by let's see, where I just lost them. Where do they go? Oh, we got Stella and Zoe, played by Karina Fernandez and Jesse Cave. They have some pretty fun interactions. They kind of break off to form their own kind of splinter group here, as more and more of these organizations are starting to support the coal miners, and we are running full circle back to the Gay Pride Parade in London, right? 1985 now. 1 year, the strike is over. And I really like kind of the parade organizers coming up to them. We've got Mark has come back basically, the night before the parade. Everyone is up kind of, in the loft above the bookshop there, making flags and making banners and sewing and all of this stuff. And, Mark's down in the streets, shouting up, asking if he can, if Mike will ever forgive him if he can come back into the group, and tells him to get in there and start sewing, which is pretty great. And they go the next day. Event organizer comes up and be like, organization, you're pretty small, you're kind of controversial, I don't know, we're gonna stick you in the back, don't worry about it. And they were pretty peeved about that, because apparently they were right up front, last year. So to get knocked back in line's not great. But then, just a couple of minutes later, he's like, nope, strike that, you're back at the front, your group is too big now. He's like, what is happening? What is happening? And we see that little bus pull up right from our strike union there from Wales, which is really nice. You think, oh, these people are coming to support, and then bus after bus after bus of all of the different miners unions come. They get out. They have their own like brass band there for the miners union going there to march in this Pride Parade here to show support back to the group that supported them the most when they needed it the most. And we get the beautiful kind of ending there of the parade kicking off. We've got Joe there, who is very glad and willing to be carrying that banner, and we kind of go out and it gives the little highlights of who some of these people were in the story and what they kind of went on to do, and that's where it ends. I assume those buses pull up. Michaela starts bawling her little eyeballs out, because it is very uplifting and emotional, and it's pretty beautiful stuff.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Thanks for going over it, because there's no way I think I'd be able to get through telling the end of the story without becoming a ball of tears myself. Yeah, it's really emotional and kind of riveting. And then to really believe and understand that this happened, this was a true thing that happened, right? Relationships were really built. Friendships were made that would have never been made if Mark Ashton hadn't said, hey, we both have shared experience. It's not exactly the same experience. You're minors and we're gay, but we both know what it's like to be at the end of a cop's boot, right? And that's not okay. And we're human beings. We want to support each other. And one of the things I really love is there's this, they talk about it a couple of times, but Dai's character, he talks about this flag with two hands joined. And he says, it's really about supporting each other in the times of need, and coming together for a common cause, and maybe not agreeing on everything, and maybe not understanding each other completely, but supporting each other despite of that. And that's what community really is. And that's what this movie is really about. And I really loved that this was called Pride, because it's about gay pride for sure, but it's also about pride in being a minor and being from a small town that now in our day and age, we would just be like, just go find a different job. What is the problem? Like, it's about pride in knowing who you are, and still proud to help others. And and which is the whole point, I think, of being of pride, right? Knowing who you are and being proud to be exactly who you are and getting that support. And of course, it's very emotional. It's a wonderful. I love Gwen. You know, she's such a sweet little old woman, and she's brought out all these things for her lesbian friends. She's like, here are they, here are my people, and it's so great. And it's awesome to see that these were real affected change that we see, and now it's kind of this thing that just happened, now 40 years ago, 41.
Yeah 41, 39 years ago. Yeah, absolutely. Is a really neat kind of look at a marker in time, and the movie is really good. It was really well received, but as I mentioned, it didn't get a lot of eyeballs on it at the time. I think maybe it's getting a little bit more of a following now. I did see this on several lists that were, talking about films to watch during this month of the year. So I was like, oh, that's that movie. We're going to be talking about it. But as you mentioned, Michaela, you had seen it because it was playing on a very small little independent place there in your part of the world where you're living in Texas. I don't know if that was the same here. I would have been in Rochester, New York, so presumably it probably was playing there, but had a really small release here in the United States. It only ended up playing in 124 theaters was the max number of theaters that it played in here. There was a lot of discussion and kind of backlash about the rating for it. It was rated R. Here in the US, and whatever basically the equivalent of the R rating is in the UK. There didn't seem to be any real reasoning for that other than you can probably take your guess as to why that was. So I think that prevented a lot of people from seeing it and making it more available and more widely available to people, which is unfortunate because it's a really good movie. The acting performances are really, really good. The story is important and very like motivational and swelling and all those things. It's really great. The soundtrack though, Michaela, maybe the best part of the movie. I don't know if you're into some early 80s rock and roll, pick up a copy of this or stream it or whatever, because this is just, it's all bangers on here for sure. Love the soundtrack. It's amazing. And maybe that soundtrack is going to be parts because apparently they're adapting this into a stage musical. We'll have to keep our eyes out on that. So they have announced that back in 2022 with Matthew Warchus there, the director, I guess, slated to be directing the stage musical of it. So that would be fun. Yeah. When I saw that, I said that makes sense because this movie feels a lot like a musical without musical numbers in it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, yeah, the like I said, the spaghetti meatball scene and like the Pits and Perverts show was just, I mean, it's set up to be done on a stage for sure. Because it was basically a disco party the entire time for both of those scenes. I loved it so much. Yeah, I mean, this film was nominated for a Golden Globe. I mean, best motion picture or comedy or musical. It's definitely worth people's time. It kind of made me sad that not a lot of people had seen it unless you were into quote unquote gay or independent films, even 10 years ago. So my friend Jeff wanted to see this and he didn't want to go by himself. He wanted somebody else to go with him. And that was only 10 years ago. And I remember feeling like maybe he was worried about seeing this film on his own. I mean, because it's still not a completely safe place to be who you are in the world. And that's really sad. I think we can see the great contrast from, 39 years ago in this film to today. But there's still a lot of work to be done. And I really challenge and encourage anybody to watch this. My son watched this film with me. There's only one scene that I felt was questionable. And it's really because you're in a gay men couple's house. And so they're going to have things that are very, very gay. And that isn't even that adult. I don't know. I didn't think it was worthy of a rated R rating then, and I certainly don't think so now. I think PG-13 is probably where it would be today, but I think it's worth everybody's time. So if you haven't seen this film, thanks for watching, reading, or listening so far to us talking about it, but please go see it because it's definitely worth your time.
Yeah, definitely go check it out. Like I mentioned, it is available to stream on Peacock at least, I think on Paramount Plus as well. So definitely go check that out and definitely mix yourself up one of the Out and Proud cocktails or one of the other cocktails from that Chill Magazine article because there were several of them. Really, all five of them looked pretty easy and pretty fun to put together and pretty tasty. So try one of those out. Let us know if you are better at layering your cocktails than we are. Send us pictures and let us know what you thought about Pride. And you can do that on our social medias. It's at Drink the Movies on Instagram and X and Threads and Blue Sky and Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. If you want to support the podcast, get bonus hangouts, bonus episodes. We did Mad Max, the original Mad Max here this month. We've got our hangouts we just did. Those are always a fun time to do. You can do that on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Drink the Movies. Great way to support the podcast, and we appreciate our patrons over there. If you want to connect with us on Discord, that link is in our, all of our social media bios. If you want to get some Drink the Movies swag, you can do that on our merchandise shop. It's drinkthemovies.square.site. Go check that out. We got some pretty cool stuff over there, including the hat. I love the hat. So definitely go check one of those out and make sure you're following along with the podcast because that's where we do our releases, lobby bar, regular episodes, all that stuff. Michaela, where can they do that?
You can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, wherever you're listening to right now. We're all over the place. We're wherever Spotify podcasts are supported and distributed. If you're liking what you're hearing, there is a subscribe button. If you're really liking what you're hearing, there is a review button. Leave us a 5-star review. Put a little blurb out. Talk to us, to all your friends. We have the best job in the world. Brian, I don't know how we did this. I don't know how we got here, but we get to do our favorite things, which is talk about movies and cocktails every week to you all. And we couldn't do that without you all listening and telling other people to listen too. So it really helps us get all the Drink the Movies out there. And we are so grateful.
Absolutely. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode here talking about the film Pride from 2014. So go check that out. Let us know what you thought about it. And we'll talk to you next time on
Drink
the
Movies. Where are my lesbians? Where are my lesbians? I love her so much.
She's so great when they're at the bar and she's asking the bartender how he gets like into the leather. He's like baby powder, and she's like, "Oh, I use whatever she said." It's like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Gwen's great.
Yep, she's great.